Casey Neistat says YouTube is vulnerable to Twitch. Nideley talks one-on-one with Casey about a multitude of topics, including Beam, his view of YouTube, Twitch, and other platforms, sponsorship, and what he's up to next. I think if Facebook is coming up with inventive ways to do that, sure, that's interesting. Except when you put the X factor of emotion, you put the X factor of culture, you put the X factor of cool in there, all of a sudden becomes a very real existential threat, not to YouTube as a viable search engine for video, that is the global standard for searching for video, but the community of creators and their audience, which is a huge, extremely exciting, extremely valuable piece of property in the media space. Huawei's replacement Joy-Con fixes Nintendo Switch's D-pad, with some sacrifices. The Nintendo Switch may very well be one of the best consoles of all time, but one thing that's not so neat is its lack of a proper D-pad. Huawei's upcoming replacement Joy-Con fixes that problem. The Switch opts for separate buttons instead of a D-pad, because you can detach the controllers and use each Joy-Con as a separate mini-controller. Dropbox IPO shares are priced at $21, higher than expected. Dropbox raised $750 million ahead of an opening day of trading on Friday in an IPO that will be closely watched across Silicon Valley to gauge the health of the tech economy. Investors in the IPO bought Dropbox shares at $21. The cloud storage company on late Thursday disclosed that its shares would list at above that price on the Nasdaq on Friday, according to reports. There's an algorithm to simulate our brains. Too bad no computer is powerful enough to run it. Scientists just created an algorithm capable of performing a complete human brain simulation. The team, comprised of researchers from Germany, Japan, Norway, and Sweden, recently published a white paper detailing the new algorithm, which connects virtual neurons with nodes. According to a Kurzweil network article, that process requires 1 bit of information per processor for every neuron in the whole network. It's the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, Charlie Brown, and it's worse than scientists thought. Researchers at the Ocean Cleanup, a non-profit dedicated to ridding our seas of trash, today published the results of a 3-year study to determine the size of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, GPGP. The vast majority of the trash is microplastics derived from deteriorated pieces of larger plastic debris or health and beauty products that contain microbeads. But the bulk of the GPGP's mass comes from fishing nets and pieces of debris over 5 centimeters. This has made determining its size difficult for scientists in the past. How the Cambridge Analytica scandal could harm data research efforts. The scandal that has erupted around Cambridge Analytica's alleged harvesting of 50 meters Facebook profiles assembled from data provided by a UK-based academic and his company is a worrying development for legitimate researchers. Political data analytics company Cambridge Analytica, which is affiliated with Strategic Communication Laboratories, SEL, reportedly used Facebook data after it was handed over by Alexander Kogan, a lecturer at the University of Cambridge's Department of Psychology. But the app also collected data on those participants' Facebook friends without their consent. Chevron's lawyer says climate change is real, and it's your fault. In a federal court in San Francisco on Wednesday, major oil companies concurred with the scientific consensus, saying it was extremely likely that human activity has been driving global warming since the middle of the 20th century. Chevron accepts what the IPCC Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has reached consensus on concerning science and climate change, said Theodore Boutros, who represents Chevron and is heading up the assorted legal team for the 5 oil companies that are defendants in this lawsuit. Coonan requested leave to file their own scientific presentation documents. S3.amazonas.com 27 318,400 thirds 03511651868.pdf response content disposition equals INLINE% 3B% 20FILENAME% 3D% 22ND% 20 California% 2017 CV 06011% 20 DCKT% 20,157,000% 20 FILED% 202,018 to 19.pdf% 22 and XMs expires equals 604,799 and XM's date equals 20,180,321 T010851Z and XM's algorithm equals AWS4HMACSHA 256 and XM's credential equals AKIHADK6JKKSMS3DQS4Q 20,180,321 AS East 1S3 AWS4REQUEST and XM Signet headers equals HOST and XM switch questions anthropogenic climate change. If Facebook controls your mind, so do a lot of other tech companies. Can Facebook's algorithms control our population and politics? Yes, and it is uniquely bad, says Francois Cholet, an artificial intelligence researcher at Google, and author of the well-known machine learning library Keras. In a widely shared Twitter thread, Cholet argues that Facebook is capable of mass population control on the political level, and its AI doesn't even need to be that sophisticated. Pacific Rim Uprising is only interested in the fight scenes, and there's nothing wrong with that. Unless they're part of a planned, ongoing storyline, like the Star Wars or Harry Potter movies, sequels are usually about mechanically reproducing the most popular parts of the original film and making them bigger, louder, and faster. Once a franchise-launching film gets all the roadblocks of world-building, exposition, and character development out of the way, sequels have a clear road to the action, and they can rev the motor and speed along without impediment. That certainly holds true for Pacific Rim Uprising, the slick, upbeat sequel to Guillermo del Toro's giant monster movie Pacific Rim. Review: Loupedeck cut my Lightroom editing time nearly in half. When people hire a photographer, they usually don't realize how much work goes into the editing process. Loupedeck, a hardware device that assigns physical controls to almost all of Lightroom's editing functions, is designed to significantly reduce that editing time. The module is comprised of several controls mapped to almost every function you'll regularly use in Lightroom. The OnePlus X may cost $749 in the 256 GB option. Just a few weeks ago, a leak gave us our first idea of what the OnePlus X might look like. Today, another leak is giving us a clearer idea of what specs the device might ship with, as well as what it might cost. According to a post on Weibo, a Chinese microblogging site, the OnePlus X will feature a 6.2-inch screen, a Snapdragon 845, 8 GB of RAM, up 256 GB of storage, 64 and 128 GB versions are possible. TNW's big spam: put Vladimir Putin's golden face near your genitals. Happy Thursday. Top trending tech news: A. Zuckerberg responds to Cambridge Analytica scandal. TNW. Yeah, and Slack now lets your boss read your DMS. TNW.IG now lets you link hashtags in your bio. TNW. What we're talking about: Bitcoin's blockchain is full of content that can land you in jail. Research published by Germany's RWTH Aachen University shows that it could be storing anything from sexual abuse of children to copyrighted material. The case of Cambridge Analytica shows how bad science, stolen data, and machine learning created a toxic stew designed to radicalize the American people. Couch next to you or online. 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 Cryptocurrency news March 22. What even is this article? Finding this MarketWatch article a bit puzzling, in that it's about a potentially very funny topic, people who think Bitcoin can make them gazillionaires and getting mad, but it's also very short, and doesn't really go into detail beyond people complaining a lot based on a study by a site called Value Penguin. I'm gonna say it right now, in about 6 months I do not think IQOS are going to be a thing. I used to write about the IQOS that were very funny on here, but they've now all been replaced with humorless scams from people you've never heard of in far-off countries that want to raise $50 million for tokens that can be exchanged for pieces of toast. Instagram is finally putting new posts first in your timeline again. Instagram today announced it would be updating timeline settings for users, offering some extra control for users, as well as a concession to those who have long wanted their photo feeds to be ordered by timeliness again. It appears Instagram might finally have listened. Based on your feedback, we're also making changes to ensure that newer posts are more likely to appear first in feed. The other major update is a new Posts button, which gives users the ability to control when their timeline refreshes, rather than just have it do so automatically. Best Buy won't sell Huawei phones anymore. Best Buy will no longer sell Huawei's phones, according to a pair of reports from CNET and Reuters. This marks the latest blow to the phone manufacturer's attempts to sell devices in the United States. Major carriers including AT&T and Verizon have refused to sell the company's phones due to pressure from the U.S. government, leaving retailers like Best Buy and Amazon as the only remaining places for U.S. customers to get devices like the recently released Mate 10 Pro or upcoming P20 line of devices. Mt. Gox. Inside the bizarre upside down months for the past 4 years, some number of foreign exchange have gathered in a small room in a Tokyo Kwashi. The stoic Japanese attorney-appointed editors attending the meeting has dwindled over time, but the most recent one earlier this month estimates of one attendee. Forget.com or .net, get a .tech address for 10 years for just $39.99. If you've tried to land yourself a cool domain name for a new website during the past decade, you've probably encountered an inconvenient hurdle. All the good domains were scooped up ages ago. Instead, be a pioneer on a new frontier and expand to the .tech world. You can join Microsoft, Rewards.tech, the Consumer Electronics Show, CES.tech, and even our own TNW.tech by locking down a .tech domain name with a 10-year license right now for just $39.99. Mark Zuckerberg apologizes for the Cambridge Analytica scandal. Mark Zuckerberg apologized on Wednesday evening for his company's handling of the Cambridge Analytica privacy scandal. Zuckerberg's comments reflected the first time he apologized following an uproar over how Facebook allowed third-party developers to access user data. Other highlights of Zuckerberg's interviews: he told multiple outlets that he would be willing to testify before Congress. What happens when an algorithm cuts your healthcare? For most of her life, Tammy Dobbs, who has cerebral palsy, relied on her family in Missouri for care. Tammy Dobbs says she went ballistic on the woman. Other people around the state were also struggling to understand the often drastic changes